AGM here on Friday, of course, via Zoom. So it's interesting. I mean, we've had several Zoom classes, CRS classes and stuff like that. So that's been kind of interesting. But
yeah.
But we were able to see the whole class, but not being able to see those looking at you, to me is always a little intimidating, I think.
Yeah.
We'll look at the pretty pictures instead.
At least I can see all of you guys. That's nice.
Yeah.
So we opened today, our borders open today to international buyers. So that's.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
what sort of protocols do you have in place for when those tourists arrive? What requirements do they have?
Right. So they have to have a COVID negative test, of course, upon arrival, and that has to have been done within 10 days. And then I think once they get here, they will also have, the temperature checked as well. And, but they have to, and I think they're going to change it again, I think, but, they have to have electronic health visa. I think it's a visa, yeah. And there's a link on the government website where they can go and get that. So there's kind of two things that they have to do. That's get the.
So they need to have a test that shows their results dated within the last 10 days. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
They've introduced 72 hours for our country, Turks and Caicos. But the message we're getting back from many people is, I can't get a test and the results within 72 hours.
Yeah.
So what some people are thinking they're going to do is schedule the test so that the results are delivered within 72 hours of the arrival, which they don't know if that's going to satisfy government or not. Because let's say it takes you 10 days to get the results back.
Cool.
Is our government, are they going to look at that test and say, well, that's great, you received these results 72 hours ago, but you got the test 10 days ago. So it's interesting to hear you're doing 10 days.
Yeah, that's what the government have done, and it has to be the RT-PCR test, which is the swab test. So
okay.
I've also heard that there will be options in the islands. If you pay for it, they will do the test right then and there and give you the results. So I think Bahamas had that. Their manual was incredible. Probably one of the most comprehensive ones I've read.
Here in the Bahamas?
Yeah.
I know they've been back and forth on this, I think like with most countries, it's just been such a new way of life and the new norm. So I think there's been a lot of trial and error. And I think too, with a lot of people, watching other countries, what they do. Oh, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be frank. I think we did very well to shut the border down as we did, but our explanation to tourists about what they need to do to arrive, to be allowed entry, has been pretty poor, and explaining to tourists what they can and can't do when they're here, I think has been pretty poor as well. And tourists become our buyers, as they do for you guys. So that's really frustrated us in the real estate community, because we're not getting a clear message out to people. They want to come and look and purchase. If we can't tell them what they need to do, we've lost some bookings over that for sure.
Yeah, it makes it harder.
So it sounds like you guys have done a far better job of communicating that to your people than we have.
I think I think the government has definitely tried to be as proactive as they can, as possible. And also, getting together with the health officials here, government, and also with the Ministry of Tourism to really, I think they've really done a good job coming together collectively and then just trying to figure this whole thing out, because, we're such a small country, we're just under 400,000 people.
That's 10 times bigger than we are.
Yeah.
Hey guys, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're just doing some technical navigating over here. So give us, let's see, can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, so we were trying to get this streamed into Facebook as well, and I don't know what's going on, but we will just record it and then we'll share it on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you all so much for being here today, and special thanks to my co-hosts who have taken time to be here and just share value and knowledge about some different islands in the Caribbean. Before we get started, I do want to introduce who we have on the call. So you'll see on my screen from left to right, we have Christine Wallace-Whitfield. And Christine is a realtor with Island Living Real Estate in the Bahamas. So she'll be able to tell you a little bit more about the areas that she covers and what her expertise is there. We've got Kate Riley, and Kate is with Property Cayman in the Cayman Islands. Hi, Kate. Graham Canham is with Coldwell Banker in Turks and Caicos. Hi, Graham. And we also have Hillary Oliver is with American Paradise Real Estate in St. John, U.S. Virgin Islands. And we have, good afternoon. We have Anne Brobyn, and Anne will be speaking after the realtors give us an update. But Anne is the owner of Hibiscus International, which is really, and you can give more of a detailed overview. But you're a travel and kind of travel concierge company, right? And so you're able to provide and will provide on this call some value as it relates to the different islands that are here with us today, and some of the culture and geography, just some interesting facts about these different places. Myself, I am Margot Weatherford. I'm with Keller Williams Realty. I'm a licensed realtor in Jamaica in the West Indies, and also in coastal North Carolina and South Carolina. So we can help you in all of those locations. And finally, we have Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Margot.
Thank you for joining us. Sam is a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual, and so he will also be giving us an update on the market as it relates to, you know, whether you're a realtor or you're looking to looking to purchase property in the Caribbean. He'll provide some insight to at least the U.S. markets and why now is a good time to invest in the Caribbean. So we'll go ahead and get started. I wanted to start, and we're kind of navigating Zoom over here, so we'll go to the next slide. We're going to start with our realtors, our highlighted realtors on the call. So the first question for all of you is, what do you love most about the properties that are available for sale on your island? And if you would, Christine, we'll start with you with this question. If you want to, introduce yourself and just say how long you've been living in Bahamas, and also when you started in real estate there.
Hi, my name is Christine Wallace-Whitfield. I am a real estate broker here in the Bahamas. I have been doing real estate for 23 years. I am currently on the island of New Providence, Nassau, and Paradise Island. I've also represent basically all of the islands in the Bahamas, and I've also lived in Grand Bahama and Exuma. So those areas I specialize in as well.
Okay, great. And what do you love most about the properties that you get to sell, or the properties that are available for sale in Bahamas?
Bahamas is unique because we have a diverse array of properties ranging from very minimal affordable pricing under 100,000, under 50,000, all the way up to the millions. So it gives you a chance to kind of deal and interact with all types of clients looking for anything, any second home, vacation rental, a second home for Airbnb. I just love the diverse way that real estate is.
Yeah, sure. I know we get a lot of questions in our my Keller Williams referral group, which there's like over 30,000 of us in the group. And we get a lot of inquiries for a realtor in Bahamas. And we've had a lot of questions lately about Exuma, which I know do you live?
Well, I lived in Exuma for 3 years. And but my part of my family is from Exuma, so I go there all the time. And I was just there on the weekend, and so Exuma is definitely a second home for me. So, and Exuma is beautiful because it's just the Keys alone. You know, boating through the Keys is magical. So,
Oh yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing. All right, Kate. So tell us a little bit about you and what you love most about the homes that you get to sell or properties you sell in Cayman.
Yeah. So I'm Kate. I'm a Torontonian. Happy Canada Day to all those Canadians, if there are any on the call. So I sold real estate in Toronto for a few years prior to moving here. I met a man and followed him down, and it was, yeah, one of the best decisions I made, not from that standpoint, but to be able to expand my real estate expertise into a different area and an island that we have so many synergies with cities like Toronto now more than ever. So that's been a great, yeah, gateway and platform for me building my business, and love helping fellow Canadians too. And yeah, I've been with Property Cayman here now with this brokerage for a year. Been selling here for 2. And yeah, it's been great. It's tough for me to answer what I love most about the properties. I feel like it's the area and the neighborhoods and, you know, the diversity and culture that we have within the neighborhoods and the island here, that's what sells the property. So every property has, you know, something different for everyone. If you're a boater, there's places on the canal. If you're a dock, if you're more family oriented, there's other, you know, detached homes that are in other neighborhoods that aren't necessarily, you know, 7 Mile Beach, you know, condo living. But yeah, I think it's safe here. Everyone feels, all the neighborhoods have their different character and charm, and there's honestly something for everyone.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And where is your office located in Cayman?
We're in Georgetown.
You're in Georgetown, okay.
Yeah, so right, we're in a beautiful new building actually next to a coffee shop called Bluestone that's Australian, and it's conveniently located right next door. It's taking all my money, but yeah, we're right downtown. So we're about a 5-minute walk from where the cruise ships get off.
Excellent. All right, Graham, what about you?
Well, hi, Graham Canham. I'm in Turks and Caicos. Similar story to Kate. I moved here from Toronto as well. And you can tell she's from Toronto because she doesn't say Toronto, she says Toronto. And that's how we pronounce it. So that's how you know if we're from Toronto. And I moved down here 17 years ago. I didn't follow a man, I followed a woman. So we almost got the same story there, Kate.
Wow.
And I was selling real estate in Toronto as well. So very similar. What do I love about the island and selling real estate here? Well, I changed the question. What do I find exciting about it? For myself, what's exciting about selling real estate here is how exciting it is for purchasers to buy. I know that we're very often helping them fulfill a sort of a lifelong dream. And this is a property that is going to be enjoyed by them, shared with family and friends. So there's a lot of emotion attached to it. And seeing and helping them make what, as I say, is often a lifelong dream, owning a property in the beautiful Caribbean, come true, is just endlessly rewarding. So that's probably the most exciting thing about selling real estate here, and the thing that I love the most.
Okay, great, fantastic. And we are now Facebook Live, so we did get that up and running. Thank you, Graham.
Sure.
Okay, and Hillary, how are things in St. John? What do you love most about selling property there?
Thank you. Yes. Reaching out to you from St. John, Virgin Islands. As you all probably realize, there's 3 U.S. Virgin Islands: St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John. St. John being the smallest of the islands, no airport, so you typically ferry from St. Thomas. There is an international airport there, as you probably all are aware. And I've been licensed here since 1999, full-time here in St. John. Market is good. In 2018, we thought we were going to be twiddling our thumbs after Hurricane Irma, and pleasantly surprised that we had a lot of activity. Getting back to the question of what I like most, our island, St. John, is 2/3 national park. So that's a big focus for, I think, a lot of the residents and visitors. A lot of the properties are, you know, second homes and vacation properties. So just fun to show vacationers, you know, vacation homes, which makes my job fun.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, I'm representing Jamaica today, even though I am in North Carolina right now. As I mentioned, you know, we sell in both North Carolina and Jamaica, and our borders didn't open in Jamaica until June 15th. So I am scheduled to go down later this month. But one of the things that I love most, I've been selling on the island since 2015. I moved down there not for a man, but for other reasons. And I just so happened to start selling on the island, and I love it. One of the things that I love most about the properties that are available in Jamaica is that they are all unique. Obviously, we have the North Coast and we have the South Coast, and we have, you know, quite a bit of land and mountains in between that. And we have everything from new home developments to, you know, beautiful villas on the waterfront. Obviously, Portland is a lovely place. If you've been to Jamaica, that's where a lot of the recent James Bond movie was filmed, and the famous Blue Lagoon. And we just have some really incredible and unique properties, as all of you do as well. So that's what I love most about it. And of course, the color of the water, as with all of you, when you know you're on the coast and you're looking out your window and you just have that wonderful breeze and the calm water, and it's just such a great experience. So that's what I love most about it. Next slide, please. Okay, so we only have a couple of questions, but the next one is, you know, obviously this call is about the property purchasing process on our different islands. So I think for our viewers, they're really interested in the legal process. You know, what does it look like for a foreigner to purchase property in your country? So if we can start again with Christine, and if you would just provide a very quick overview, if you can, of what that process looks like and about how long does it take for a transaction to be completed in Bahamas?
Okay. Well, in the Bahamas, basically, once you've found your property, you know, you put your 10% earnest deposit down. An attorney is referred to you. They do the title search, and then basically the legal, you pay 2.5% for your legal fees, and then anything under 100,000 is just 2.5%. Over that is 10%, which is shared equally between the buyer and the seller. Non-Bahamians international who come in to buy, basically, you know, their applications that have to be done to the Director of Immigration.
Do you want to talk to them now, or do you want to?
Oh, okay. And to get a homeowner's card, and basically all, you know, there are a lot of things if you want to become a resident of the Bahamas, but closing the deal really takes anywhere from 60 days and can go up to 90 days. It depends on the application process and the due diligence with the attorney, and also your applications into Bahamas Investment Authority. And yeah, but the lawyer is there to make sure that they represent you with all the legal process. I am there to make sure that you find the property and that you're satisfied with your purchase.
Great, thank you. So is it just a cash purchase would be 60 to 90 days?
Yeah, it depends on the title. Once the title is straightforward and clear, and depends on the attorney making sure that they've done everything and they're swift and they're moving along, you know, quickly. But also too, international buyer can also purchase with getting a mortgage here in the Bahamas. And there are several banks here who will lend to international buyers.
Okay, great. Thank you, Christine. All right, Graham, what about in Turks and Caicos? What's the process?
Sure, and I think a lot of these Caribbean countries will have similar processes, but starts with a simple offer form. If that's accepted, effectively you've reserved the property. So it's just the buyer and the seller negotiating a sales contract. Nobody's going to be able to step in between the two of you for a number of days. It shouldn't really take more than 10 days to get a binding contract in place, and then you pass over a 10% deposit. Our closings are probably more like 30 to 45 days. I think people purchase here, and this is probably true of most of the islands, with a good deal of confidence because of our land registry system. When somebody pulls the title or the deed to a property.
All right, that's fine. You have the approval to do the $5.
Sorry, I don't know if someone's jumping in on me there. I don't know if you could still hear me. I was just saying people purchase here with a good deal of confidence because of our land registry system. And as I say, 30 to 45 day closings. Most of our buyers are probably going to be cash purchasers. Sadly, our local banks take a little bit of time to get financing together, and it can be a little bit more expensive to put a loan together. So I'm interested to hear one of the other people on the call, some of their comments about how they can help purchasers that require financing purchase here. But we have no need for anybody to fill out any additional paperwork. Any foreign national can own property here. You can own it in your personal names. You can own it in a Turks and Caicos company. We can help you with local attorneys here. And I think, as I say, buyers purchase with a lot of confidence here. And once it's explained to them, it's a pretty simple and straightforward transaction, and they own the property in 30 to 45 days.
Okay, great. We had a question from Lisa Harris on the call. She said, how much is the cost of the investment for the application authority?
I think that's aimed not at me, but at Christine.
Oh, Christine.
Yes, so the Form 1 must be filled by the Bahamas Investment Authority, also the Prime Minister, payment of the requisite fee of $250.
US dollars?
No, $3, because that would be done here in the Bahamas, yeah.
So what would that equate to in US, roughly?
Well, we're on par, but there's normally a 0.9950 percentage, but so it's very minimal.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great, thank you. All right, moving on to Kate. So, as Graham mentioned, yeah, a lot of us do have similarities in our legal process and transferring title, but is there anything that you would say, Kate, in Cayman that is different or unique that you would like to highlight with regards to the legal process of purchasing?
Yeah, so Graham, just comparatively to Turks, we're actually very similar. So, I guess it's same thing, simple, straightforward. There's no restrictions here on foreign ownership of any kind, which is helpful. So, again, people can buy in their own name or in a company name. We have plenty of lawyers we work with who help them out with what is best to suit their individual, I guess, purchasing goals. But mainly, the only change for us is there's no, obviously, taxes here, which is great, but there is a one-time stamp duty tax of 7.5%, which it's on the buyers to pay. Again, that's only a one-time payment. And there's no getting out of that, unfortunately. That's for every buyer, something they have to go through. But again, we're tax neutral. So there's no property tax. And once you have that property, obviously there's variable costs associated with that. But yeah, very simple, straightforward process. We're about, I'd say 60 days for the average closing. Cash buyers, that's great. But again, if people need financing, we do have banks here that work with foreigners. We have strong relationships with them. We have full confidence in them. Lending will be a bit different. Usually, they'll lend about 65% versus, traditional maybe 85, 90. But we help buyers leverage, properties that they have in their home country to, some people take out a mortgage on what they have back home to buy here. with cash. But yeah, it's a very, very simple, straightforward process, very similar to probably where people buy in Canada and the States. So it's, yeah, very similar to Turks, but it's smooth, secure transition.
Great, thanks. Hillary, is there anything that wasn't mentioned that's unique about U.S. Virgin Islands that you'd like to highlight?
Not really. A lot of similarities that were already pointed out. I mean, we're really under the U.S. flag, so very similar laws and transactions, real estate transactions. We do have a stamp tax. It is based on the purchase price, so anything under $350,000 is 2%, and then anything between $350,000 and $1 million is 2.5%, and it goes up from there. That's traditionally split equally between the buyer and seller. We are using attorneys, different than the States where, you know, typically it's a title agent that handles the whole closing. Typically here there's a buyer and a seller, each have their own attorney. Closing, yes, 60 days cash, 90 days or so for financing. We do have availability. Flagstar out of Michigan does loan down here, and then we have several local banks. And then the new Oriental Bank that Scotia sold to. So haven't had much financing experience with them yet, but that should be an interesting addition to our market. And I might add property taxes. We do have property taxes. They run about $3,770 per $1 million of assessed value, and no restrictions to foreigners to buy.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's pretty much the same in Jamaica. Jamaica is obviously one of the things that I found when I started selling there that was different than the States, which is where I was before, is that the attorney, the conveyancing attorney, really takes over once we are under offer and under contract. So that was unique for me from a purchaser standpoint, because in the US, you're so used to having your realtor that's walking with you through the whole process. And in Jamaica, we still walk alongside of you, but there is also a lot of communication between the purchaser and the conveyancing attorney, which I was not as used to coming from the States. We also do have transfer tax and stamp duty tax. Our stamp duty tax recently went down significantly. So it used to be a percentage that was shared between the seller and the purchaser, and now it's only 2,500 Jamaican paid by both, which is about 20 or less US dollars. And we do have a what?
But what a difference!
Oh, huge, yeah. So that was actually issued, you know, not too long ago. So that was a big change. And we do have a transfer tax that is paid by the vendor or the seller. That's a 2% of purchase price. So for us, cash transactions, 60 to 90 days. There's a lot of lending that goes on for foreign buyers in Jamaica. And of course, if you do obtain a mortgage, you're going to have to put at least 10% down, and it's going to take a little bit longer than the cash transaction period. Next slide, please. Okay, so we, I don't know if I think we kind of touched on this. Property taxes, you know, for us on the island, they're like minimal. Coming from the US, depending on what state you're in, you know, we're used to some pretty exorbitant tax rates. So I think it's the same relatively for all of you, right?
Except we have no taxes. We don't have property tax here.
Yeah, like Cayman, Turks and Caicos has no income taxes paid to this government, no property taxes to this government, and no capital gains taxes paid to this government either.
Yeah, that's great.
That's what I tell people when like the 7.5%, our stamp duty is obviously a little bit higher, but that's one time, and then all the other bits just make, you know, it pays itself off.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think we can probably move on to the next question. Okay, we're nearing the end here. So before we move on to Sam, do you guys have a multiple listing service on your island? And what would you say roughly the median sales price is? Whoever wants to hop in first.
All right, I'll, yes, we do. We have a multiple listing service on the island, and I mean, basically, like well, I don't know everywhere else, but here you have to be a member of Bahamas Real Estate Association to, and also become a member of the multiple listing service here. And as everybody knows who has it, it's a unique tool. And basically for home sales pricing, you know, basically around 600 to 750,000. I think also more for international buyers, and then around $350,000 for the local market. But you know, and it's open to everybody. So I mean, that's basically.
What's the name of your MLS?
The multiple listing service.
But the public end.
Multiple listing, yeah.
I think I kind of missed that part.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just me cutting out. Sorry, Christine, like the name of your, like if someone were to look for properties in Bahamas, what's the website that they go to?
Yeah, the Bahamas multiple listing. Yes, sir.
Just the Bahamas part. Sorry.
Okay.
So Christine, all of your islands are on one MLS.
Yes, we have one MLS service.
Interesting. That's different than our St. John has their separate MLS, St. Croix and St. Thomas, although they're considering merging St. Thomas and St. Croix. Right now, they're all separate. So you must have a lot of properties then on your MLS compared to, you know, we have 3 separate. So different.
Yeah. But you know, it just makes it so much easier, and then it's easier to manage and control.
Right. Hillary, that's interesting. So is your office, I would assume, members of all 3 MLSs?
Actually, you have the choice. There are people that do that, although my office really focuses on St. John and just strictly, I mean, you can put your car on a barge and go over, but I typically just refer out separate islands. I mean, my focus is St. John, but there are realtors that will do that. You know, St. Croix is a little bit farther than St. Thomas. It's, you know, a couple-hour ferry ride or a flight. So that's not, you know, ideal to be able to switch between St. John and St. Croix, but more so it happens between St. Thomas and St. John.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Who else? Do you have an MLS, and what's your median sales price?
So I'll go. Yeah. So Cayman's, again, we're 3 islands: Grand Cayman, the Brac, and Little Cayman. We're all in the same MLS. And we're under CIREBA, so CIREBA, Cayman Islands Real Estate Brokers Association. And that's obviously a public site for anyone in the world to go to. And yeah, as agents under CIREBA, we have access to all listings on the market. We do have some brokerages here that aren't on the MLS. Those agents can sell all properties, but they can't obviously list a home for sale on the MLS. So, you know, they don't necessarily get the same exposure. But yeah, I think that answers my question. But yeah, very easy to navigate. It's, it shows, yeah, all the properties on a map, which I'm not sure, I know every city is different, but that helps, especially when people are navigating, they've never been before, but they can see the 7-mile strip and sort of search by area on the island versus just price point or property type.
And then what would you say your median sales price is?
Oh, right. So I guess that varies. I think probably the easiest thing right now is to maybe focus on the 7-mile beach corridor. So on the canal side, we have more detached homes that, you know, it's kind of like, I guess, that Florida vibe if anyone's been to Naples, but those range from, they probably start at minimum 1.5 all the way up to 6 million. And then beachside oceanfront condos on 7-mile beach range from, you can probably get in for maybe 800K right now, US, and go all the way up to 10, 12 million.
Right. But you don't have property tax, so that's good.
No carrying costs other than your variable, you know, your hydro and water and all that. So if you take long showers, you're getting up there.
For us, so in Jamaica, we do have a multiple listing service. The Realtors Association of Jamaica is our association name. You, as a brokerage or as a dealer, right now you don't necessarily have to be a member of the MLS. It's not required, although a lot of brokerages on the island are shifting to that. And I would say that our median sales price is, you know, it really depends on kind of where you are in the different parishes and parts of the island. But overall, maybe, you know, 250,000 US, you can get a townhome. I've sold in Negril for under 100,000 US, just like a little studio right by the sea. And then of course, we go all the way up to like trial, you know, you're probably 900,000 to upwards of 3 million. We really, we don't have a lot of properties that exceed like 4 or 5 million. So I would say that our median is probably 250, 300 US.
Want me to jump in next?
Yeah.
Sure. So we also have an MLS system here. And you can find that at TC for Turks and Caicos, TCREA.com. And that's where all the properties on the multiple listing service will be found. Any property, doesn't matter what island it's on, will be found there. Now, frankly, there's many islands, but everybody's living on Provo for the most part. So or Providenciales, 90% of the properties, the people that someone would be looking at are going to be found there. So most of our buyers are coming to Turks and Caicos, which is a group of islands, but they're really focusing on Providenciales or Provo. And like the other islands, there's a really broad spectrum of pricing. So it really does depend where you are and how close you are to the beach, obviously, and whether or not you're waterfront, to give you a sense of what medium home prices might be. I would say if you want to be in a neighborhood where you could do some successful short-term renting and be relatively close to Grace Bay Beach, which is the most popular location, you're going to start at, now you're not going to be on the water, but maybe 500,000 to 600,000. If you want to then move to something in the same area but on the water, like on a canal, you're going to be $1 million plus. And if you want something that's on the beach, you're probably going to be $4 to $5 million. Most of our homes here have been relatively recently built and built to a pretty high standard. So that's why you usually are going to find oceanfront homes at a price at a real premium.
Graham, Cayman is very, sounds like we're on par, you know, aside from, I guess, the entry point at 4 or 5 million on the beach, but that aside, Cayman's very similar to the Turks on all that. Those prices there, yeah.
And I think one thing people don't understand is the difference between what I would call oceanfront and beachfront. Sometimes people, when they hear the word oceanfront, they think sandy walk into the beach. And I'm sure the rest of you as realtors have needed to just educate some of the buyers to make sure that they understand when I say oceanfront or waterfront, I might be talking about a rocky coastline into the water. And when I say beachfront, I'm talking about walking into the sand, into the ocean. So for a purchaser, that's probably a distinction they want to pay attention to.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Okay, we'll move to the next slide. All right, so last question. You know, obviously with all of this going on, I know Christine, Bahamas just opened up today, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, so with everything going on, you know, what is it like on your island for travel, and what's the protocol if one of our viewers was planning to come to your island? What do they need to know about immigration and entry with what's going on?
Well, as you said, today, July 1st, the Bahamas has opened the borders up for international travel. And basically you have to have had a COVID-19 test done. It has to be negative, and it has to have been done within the 10 days of your travel. And it has to be the RT-PCR test, which is a swab test. And then basically also with that, you have to have an electronic health visa, and they provide on the Bahamas government site where you can obtain that, and that's prior to travel. And once you enter here into the Bahamas, they of course do the temperature checks, and so that is their, you know, their protocols.
Got it. Okay, Kate, what about you, Cayman?
Yeah, so we're we're still closed here. So my update here won't be too long. We are anticipating hopefully September 1. That could be pushed back. But for now, if you want to get off, there are some private charters and private airports open. So we've had some nice private jets leaving. And there's some range flights, but maybe once a month back to the UK or the States or Canada. But I know that when we do open, at this point, when people do come back, they will have to have a work permit or PR, and they'll regardless have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So that's where we're at now. If we do open September 1, but they, you know, that could change. We're hoping if things go well in Bahamas and, you know, other islands nearby, I think, yeah, I'm hopeful that by November things will get back to normal. If normal's even a thing anymore.
You guys have just been there. You haven't left since when was the last time you were off the island?
This is the longest I've ever gone, probably.
Yeah, I mean, really, for all of you have been, you know, on the island since what, March at least.
Yeah, I've been here since January or February, really bad.
Yeah. Island fever can be a real thing. I don't know about for all of you.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah. Thank you for that update. Graham, what about you? Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry, we're scheduled to open July 22nd. Not that far off. And there will be testing required. So when a guest to our country arrives, they'll need to provide evidence of that within 72 hours, that test. But there is some talk about shifting some of those requirements. So I would encourage people to go on Turks and Caicos tourism.com, and the latest requirements and updates will be posted there. There is currently requirements to wear masks when out in public, but obviously if you're on the beach, you don't need to, and there's social distancing happening. So that's the sort of protocol we expect tourists are going to need to follow when they arrive here. But really, Turks and Caicos tourism.com is the smartest place for people to check if they want the latest information.
Yeah, thank you. All right, and Hillary?
Yes, our islands opened on June 1st, so we've been open a month now. The island of St. John held steady at 2 cases, travel-related cases, until we opened, and now we're up to, I think, 4 cases. So added a couple, and I don't know, our governor says our flights are full, so if we've only added the 2, let's hope it remains that way, and we continue to stay fairly normal, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Jamaica opened up on the 15th of June, and you know, I've been getting updates and things, but it, again, at immigration, you know, they're doing the health screenings, and if anyone does test positive, then they do have to quarantine there for, I think it's a minimal of 2 weeks. But they're making sure that everyone who is on the island for tourism is going to the places that they say they're going to go. And I think that they're tracking that very diligently. So the borders are open. But yeah, it's kind of, you know, it's definitely a different time for sure. And I'm looking forward to Sam talking about the market and kind of what buyers can expect over the next 6 months. So next slide, we're going to open it up for questions before we move on. Anyone on the call want to ask a question to a particular realtor on a particular island, or what questions do you have for us?
Hi there, it's Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
One quick question. I believe it was Graham that was in the Turks. Does the Turks and Caicos also have that 7.5% one-time tax as well, or just flat no tax in the Turks and Caicos?
We also have a stamp duty fee. I believe they call it the same thing in Cayman. That's a one-time fee that a purchaser pays when they acquire property. It's a sliding scale. It's 6.5% or 8 or 10%, depending on the purchase price. So as the price point moves up, that percentage moves up. So that's a one-time fee paid by the purchaser when they acquire property.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Hi, Margot. I have a question. For a visa program, is there any island offer? I know that Turks and Caicos is offering, but is there any other island offering visa program to gain the nationality once you buy a property?
For Cayman, it all works through. I didn't know if you were talking about residency status, like a visa through.
Yes.
Permanent residency. Yeah. So in Cayman, there's two common ways people go about getting residency, and one is mainly for retirees, and there's a minimum spend in real estate. Don't quote me, but I believe about 1.2 US, and then another gateway to PR is for those who aren't necessarily retiring, a little bit higher price point. You have to invest about 2.2 US in real estate, and then you aren't bound by you have the right to work if you want it to work. You are you have freedoms as locals and those with work permits. You can come and go as you please. There's no minimum or maximum. Maybe there's I think a small minimum stay here, but that gives you your PR. And otherwise, you come here on a work permit. If you're here for 10 years, it really takes about 10 years to get that PR and another 5 to get a passport.
Okay.
But that's the most common is people, that's one of the gateways to PRs, people buy real estate to get that PR.
Yeah, in Jamaica, it's a minimum of 3 years to gain permanent residency.
So independent of any investment in real estate?
Correct.
Okay.
Great question. Thank you, Thomas.
I'm curious, do any of the islands there have restrictions when it comes to VRBO or Airbnb, if these are second homes or vacation homes? And if they do, what do some of those restrictions look like?
I don't know.
You want me to answer that first?
You go ahead, Graham.
So in Turks and Caicos, you could certainly use VRBO and Airbnb to rent out your property. What we're seeing recently, though, is the introduction of a few bylaws into some of the condominium hotel projects where they will restrict you and require you to use the on-site management company. So you may not be able to VRBO or Airbnb a condominium you own in a particular hotel. Or I think that's going to, I think we're going to see more and more of that. Right now, there's only a few that have that restriction, but I think we'll see more going forward. But certainly if you own a home on your own, no, there's no restriction on that.
Yes. In the Bahamas, I know the Ministry of Tourism, they were working along with Airbnb as well with a similar thing. But I know that some developments here, it's finding the development if you're going to be in a gated community to allow the short-term rentals, because not all developments and condos allow that. Now, if you're buying a detached single-family home, then outside of a gated community, then that's not a problem. But it really depends on finding the gated community that allows short-term rentals. Minimum rental for a short-term is basically 6 months that they would do minimum, but you'd have to find the actual development properties, gated communities that would allow short-term rentals.
Thank you.
If I may add on, St. John and the Virgin Islands, there are no restrictions, and Airbnb and VRBO are being actively utilized. No minimum stay except for what the homeowner or the property manager puts on it. There is a 12.5% hotel tax that's charged to the homeowner, but it's often passed on to the guest.
Kate, you were going to say something.
Yeah, we're very similar to Hillary. We have a 13% tax that the yeah, tourist tax that the owner has to pay, but we're very open to Airbnb and VRBO short-term rentals. There are, it's the odd condo that doesn't allow that. And if they do, they want to be in charge, as kind of Graham said, happens in the Turks. But yeah, more or less, we see a lot of it here.
Yeah, same for us. We have a huge success rate with Airbnb, particularly, and there's a lot of several companies and independent contractors on the island who have kind of started their own businesses, to service those landlords and those owners and manage the Airbnb site for them and the bookings for them. So we see a lot of that. All right, so for the sake of time, we're going to shift gears. If you have any questions for any of us as realtors that have been on this call, I will be sharing all of our contact information so that you'll be able to reach out to us as questions come up. But please stay on, because we've got two more really important folks on the call that are going to deliver some incredibly valuable information. So the next one is Sam, and Sam is with Northwestern Mutual. So we'll switch slides. Thank you. And Sam, welcome to the call. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. No, it's been really good to hear all of this insight into the Caribbeans. I've obviously lost my bow tie due to COVID and Zoom calls now, so it's all via Zoom these days. I won't try and keep this too gloomy, because there is some positives here. I think the first thing to mention is the American super rich have seen their wealth increase by about $300 billion in the first 3 weeks of the pandemic. So when you're looking into the Caribbeans and seeing the type of clients that are buying there, generally buying second homes, there's definitely been a lot of money made during this time. Just quickly recapping the markets. And just go through some recent history. So obviously we saw the markets sell off in mid-Feb. They reached the bottom of 33%, just using one index here, the S&P 500. We believe stocks can see more turbulence in the second half of 2020, with gains capped as the virus continues to keep hold of the economy. Just hearing what some of you are saying about starting in September, depending on how the COVID situation turns out to be. We see some recent cases in Texas and Florida, so it's still dependent on that. The S&P is still about 7% lower year to date, even with a near 39% jump in the second quarter. But really, it's a lot of uncertainty, because besides the virus, we've got the November election. And that's definitely going to cause some turbulence in the market as well. So that's just what's been happening. There's definitely a lot of uncertainty out there. In terms of the 3 to 6 month outlook, it really depends on the second wave of COVID. According to the Atlanta Fed, GDP is due to fall about 30% in the second quarter, and Goldman Sachs expects it to be 25% slide in GDP. Either way, it's pretty terrible. But and just in comparison, the worst quarter in the 2008-2009 recession of real GDP fell 2.2%. So we're looking at 25-30% right now versus 2.2. But as I said, there's been a lot of money made during this time, and in terms of your ideal clients, I think there's a lot of opportunities right now in the Caribbeans. Personally, I'm seeing clients wanting to get out of New York City. They're moving to White Plains up north. They're moving to Westchester. They're moving to New Jersey. There's an old joke between New York and New Jersey. People don't usually move to New Jersey from New York. Now they are, because they're looking for gardens. They're looking for bigger homes. And if you look at the big tech companies, Facebook, Twitter, Netflix, Amazon, they've changed the status quo. They're allowing employees to work from home. And some of these are now saying that they can work from home indefinitely. And what I'm seeing is some of my clients are planning to set up shop in South America. And who knows, with the power of Zoom calls now, they can even be moving to the Caribbeans if there's no jurisdiction with them conducting business. So I think there's lots of upside in terms of second home purchases. And just looking at a Mesa survey with the top, the FANGs companies, Facebook, Twitter, Netflix, Amazon, they found that 66% of the people, workers in Silicon Valley, said that they want to move out indefinitely, and 75% in New York said that they want to move out indefinitely. And where is that moving out going to be? If they're looking to get out of their primary home and move it into the burbs, there's a good chance that they could be trying to find a second home, or even making that their first home and moving to the Caribbean. So just some interesting stuff there. Internationally, yeah, I think I've covered some of that. In terms of the US though, single family housing starts, they were expected to increase by 10% in 2020. They're now expected to decline by 11%. So if people are not looking at the US, then maybe they're looking internationally. In terms of a rebound, my predictions there, I think it's going to get sustained monetary and fiscal stimulus, but I do believe that the rebound is going to be slower and choppier than the collapse. And I think we're in for a multi-year recovery in the markets. I'm finding that investors, my clients, they're looking for alternatives. They're looking for alternatives to the markets because they believe there's not going to be much upside there. So once again, I believe getting a second home, as people are starting to flood these markets, there could be some upsides in the Caribbean. And many economists expecting taxes to increase due to the trillions of dollars of debt that's been added. And if we cast our minds back to the 60s and 70s, taxes were a lot higher than the top end of 40% in the US. So I believe some investors might be looking for some safe havens there and different alternatives. So uncertainty, definitely, because guess what? We still got COVID. We haven't shrugged it off just yet. That is definitely going to affect the second quarter, the second half of 2020. But also, we have a very tight election. And I think the markets can go either way, depending on whether it's Biden or Trump, regardless of political views and agenda. I think the markets could react quite dramatically. So I don't think we're out of market turmoil just yet. But if your clients are wealthier, more affluent individuals that are looking to get out, I think that should be a turning point. I think that should be a talking point to your clients, and making them realize that if there is a second wave, it's going to seriously affect the markets. But I think it's a good time to be getting out and getting something a little bit more secluded and away from people and civilization. So that's a quick synopsis, Margot.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's perfect. Thank you, Sam. And one of the main reasons that I wanted Sam on, or I asked him to be on this call, is exactly what he just shared. There's a lot of skepticism in the marketplace just from a universal standpoint. And I think it's refreshing to hear that, in the United States in particular, because that's where we are and where, for many of our islands, a large portion of our clientele does come from. But one of the things Lisa Harris mentioned in the chat, she said, as a realtor in South Carolina, we're seeing the halfwayers coming from New York and New Jersey in droves, which we are, because of the low taxes here and having, lake and beach properties, good weather, all of that. So I think you bring a good point up that if you have these, Manhattan folks or whomever that are moving into the burbs, they're moving into New Jersey, they're cashing out some equity that they could reinvest, right, and have more of a secluded place to go. It is a prime time for that. So thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for being on the call.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we've got Anne Brobyn with Hibiscus International. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you, Margot. It's a pleasure to be part of this esteemed panel. I've met a number of you through work over the last about 15 years in real estate travel. And I've been in the business 35 years developing tours. And I too am from Toronto, but I do say Toronto, sorry guys. Graham and Kate. And I went to the Caribbean, to St. Vincent and the Grenadines to live and to start Hibiscus. I was actually running from a man, not to one, so a little bit different story there. And it's been an amazing experience, not only the living and working in the Grenadines, which is where my backdrop is. I'm a sailor. But also when I worked for the Caribbean Tourism Organization for 3 years on contract, my job was really to travel the Caribbean, get to know every island, what made it unique, what made it different, and then traveling across Canada and training travel agents on the uniqueness and diversity of the Caribbean. So that is a passion of mine, is looking at cultures and looking at not only how we're the same, but also how we're different. So I did prepare a short presentation. Margot, I don't know if you're able to load that up.
We do, we have it. And before we get started, I just want to share that, you know, Anne has a really unique value on this call, because for those who are listening in, you know, if you're undecided of which island you are looking to purchase on or in, and you know, or maybe you're a realtor and you want some more information, Anne and her company, Hibiscus International, are a great resource. As she has mentioned, she has a ton of experience, a wealth of knowledge on all of these different islands. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. And just kind of tell us as we're going along, can you see this screen?
I can see the screen.
Okay, so just tell us when, and we'll let you have the floor.
Okay, now I don't think you can see my cursor on it. No, okay. So, okay, also I'll just tell you that. So click the next one anyways. Okay, so I've noticed that some of my clients, existing and past clients, are on this call as well. So, so nice to see you ladies, that actually it is, that I've noticed some of the names. So you've seen some of this presentation, but I'm really going to focus it on the islands that are represented here today. So we are looking at Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, Jamaica, Cayman Islands. And I really wanted you to take a look at a map to see, I mean, you've got 1 million square miles. So this is a huge area, not as large as the US, but not far off. So starting at the very top, you can see where the Bahamas are. And Christine is in the capital of Nassau in New Providence, but there are 700 out islands. And as you go down the chain, you will see it's almost the same distance from the north, from Grand Bahama down to Grand Inagua, which is about the same as Florida to drive. So you can imagine you do have to fly between or have some kind of transportation between islands. There's ferries and boats. If you continue on down following the Bahamas, you come right into Turks and Caicos, where Graham is. And there are 8 inhabited islands in Turks and Caicos, but 3 of them, the most popular one, as he said, was Providenciale or Provo. But you've also got South, North, and Middle Caicos, which are quite popular as well. A totally different experience than Provo. And that we'll save for another day. Now, if you continue down, you'll see Haiti Dominica, which is the island of Hispaniola, but go to the left if you're looking at the screen this way, as you are, and you will see Jamaica. And you can see the different size. I mean, Jamaica, oh good, I saw a little cursor there. So Jamaica is one of the larger islands. Once, as I say, Hispaniola and Cuba are taken out. And although it's one island, there are 14 parishes, I believe, in Jamaica. And then if you continue on left a little bit further, you'll come to the Cayman Islands, where you have the 3 Cayman Islands that Kate has mentioned. So you've got Grand Cayman, which is the main island with Georgetown, the capital, and Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. The other 2 are very different from Grand Cayman. So even within the islands, there's a very different flavor and a feel. Some are far more laid back, and some are far more sophisticated. Now, if you go all the way back to Haiti Dominica and keep going to the right now, past Puerto Rico, you'll come to the US Virgin Islands and the British Virgin Islands. And we're splitting off the British Virgin Islands. They aren't here today, but the US Virgin Islands, the easy way to remember it is they are the closest to the US. The British Virgin Islands are the clump of islands that are the closest to Britain, although it's way, way across the Atlantic Ocean. So in the US Virgin Islands, there are 4, but the 3 main ones, St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John. Water Island has, I think, made its little name in there now, so considered one of the islands. So those are the islands, and they have different heritages. And I think we'll just go to the next slide. No, it's not showing. I think we missed a slide.
It may have been, go to the next one.
Okay, that was the one I was going to go to. Okay, and then we'll go back up.
All right.
So I've taken all of the islands of the Caribbean, and they really fall into 4 languages, English, French, Dutch, and Spanish, but it also gives you a clue as to what their heritage is, even though some, such as Trinidad and Tobago, changed hands probably like, I think it's about 30 times. And I see the formatting didn't hold on this, but the English ones are generally considered the Commonwealth Islands. They are like Canada, where I'm from, but there's the exception to it, which is the US Virgin Islands. They are a territory of the US. But one of the ways you can remember what island you're on, what language they speak, what their heritage is. If you're on an English island, you're going to be driving on the left, and all the other ones, you're going to be driving on the right. So it's a different way of looking at it, but the culture is very British, which is Commonwealth, and you'll see that in some islands like Barbados called Little Britain. It's so British, but these are the ones that I think are doing very well right now. I know as a travel advisor and our travel agency, we're selling a lot of the English-speaking islands for 2021. So they're coming your way. I'm booking them already. Hopefully, everything opens up as we have our fingers crossed. Okay, we can go back to the other slide. Another thing to look for in an island, which would affect what island you want to purchase on, is that not islands look the same. So you generally have 2 types, a volcanic island or a coral island. And most of the ones here that we've got, Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, Jamaica, well, Jamaica isn't, there's a half one there, and Cayman Islands are very much coral islands. They have that white sand beach, the shallow waters that you can walk out into, somewhat of the dream look of a tropical island. However, some of my favorites, and living in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we were on a volcanic island, and there are volcanoes on them. Some islands have active volcanoes, some don't. We all know what's going on in Montserrat. Most are either dormant or extinct. But look at the very different vegetation, and the mountains you have, they drop right off into the water. Also known for its scuba diving, a different type of scuba diving. We do get scuba diving in all the islands, and they all have something unique about them for scuba divers. But you've got more jungle, you're going to have more waterfall, different types of flora and fauna will be in the mountains. But the mountain views to be up in the cool breeze, it will go down several degrees as you go up into the mountains. You don't need the screens because you have your windows open, and if there's any bugs flying, they're going right through to the other side and out. So having lived up in the mountains as well as down on beaches, I certainly like the feel of living up in the mountains, and the views, of course, are spectacular there. Okay, we can go down 2 more then. There we go. And I just touched on that. So just very briefly, rainfall is going to be considerably different. On the right, at the top right-hand corner, that's Dominica. I had a film crew there once, and very, very humid. It would probably rain 5 times while walking through the jungle. You carry an umbrella, or you put up your poncho, or you just get wet because you dry off in between because of the humidity there. And they'll have 365 inches of rain a year. If you go to the left, you see the cactus, that's Aruba. that has 12 inches of rain per year. So the islands that we're looking at are going to have a variety. Jamaica itself has the whole thing. On the leeward side, there's going to be less rain. On the windward sides, you get more rain. And the coastlines look different. So on the bottom, you see on the left, there is what the leeward side of an island looks like. If it's a volcanic island, the sand will be a bit darker, and that's how you'll know that you're on the leeward side. When you go to the windward side, and every island has a leeward and a windward. So the windward side is going to have rougher waves. We sometimes call it the Atlantic side. It's where as the trade winds are coming in, the waves are coming in. So it's a totally different look. There are some islands that are very flat. The coral islands, you really can't tell too much difference in the windward, but most of the real estate you will find will be on the leeward islands. The prime real estate will be on that side where there are the beautiful blue waters. The color, it's the same water, but it's shallower. And so the sand is what on the bottom, whatever's on the bottom is what gives it that color. So it's not different water. It's just, and it's a bit warmer when it's shallower. Okay, there's the quick primer, I believe, on the Caribbean. I think there was just one more slide, just the wrap up. There we go. So I'm a full service travel agency, so I can get you to any of these islands to visit real estate. If you're going down on a vacation, we can add, I contact Kate, Hillary, Christine and Margot and say, I've got someone coming down, can you take them around? And instant client. I don't get involved in your real estate deals. I stay out of that. It's between you and who I introduce you to. I just hope that you see that living and owning property in the Caribbean is, right now, is actually the place you need to be.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Anne. And I want to add, there was a slide with your contact information, so we'll make sure that everyone has that as well. But there are some folks on the call, and I'm sure some that are watching online that are in, different offices and things, especially in the States. So you also can do like educational training
yes.
for islands, right?
Absolutely. I service most of my clients are American, so I can service anyone and move you anywhere in the world. That is what a fully licensed travel agency does. And then we also offer real estate cruises and real estate tours, which is how I've met a number of you as well, that you help us when we go around as a group to the islands. So yes, I'm available for speaking and also helping you with the travel arrangements.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you all for being on this call. A special thanks to our speakers and our guests. I greatly appreciate you being a part of this. This is our first time doing any sort of Zoom together, and I think we should probably do more of it. I don't know how our audience feels, but I definitely think we have a lot of value to share. And yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And like I said, I'll send out contact information. Any last words before we go?
Thank you, Margot, for coordinating all this.
Thanks, Margot. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yep,
really
thanks,
nice
Margot.
meeting all the
Good
realtors
effort.
as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. Bye.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.